I'm Nicolas Frankel. I'm a developer, architect, whatever. I work as a consultant, so basically I'm a slave to what the customer asks of me. You know it. Right now I'm working for a little startup called SAP. Who knows about SAP? Okay, yes, SAP. And in the division called Hybris, and basically I'm tasked with integrating a product called the Hybris e-commerce platform into the customer's infrastructure. And Hybris is built on Java and Spring, and so hence this talk. I'm also a Java developer since 15 years, and I have seen a lot of crappy stuff. So first crappy stuff. Who can tell me what's crappy in that stuff? Who here is a Java developer? Not everybody. Guys, there is another talk in the other room. So can anybody tell me what's the issue with this snippet? Yes, please. It breaks encapsulation. So basically, I designed a very nice API with a private member, and then I'm accessing it. But how is that possible? I mean, normally the Java language prevents me from accessing something that is private if it's outside of the class. And here I'm accessing it. And because of line 16, this line, I can access a private member. Who has already used this stuff in production? Weep and cry. And of course, this is part of the normal Java reflection API. You can use it. I mean, it's meant to do that, but in that case, you can do pretty stupid stuff. Now, another snippet. This is a good talk because you work a lot and I just ask questions and you have to answer. Yes? I know you are waving to the gentleman at the front door. That is not comfortable to be in your place right now. Huh? I understand. So who can tell me what the snippet does? If I execute the snippet, what will it do? You know, this is kind of stupid quiz that you find on Boost that, hey, you have to be a compiler or a runtime. And tell me what the result. That is very evil. Yes? Mm-hmm. But the field is an int. It changes that. That was shown by me by my colleague Volker Simonis, that you can actually, through the reflection API, change the type of a variable. I mean, that is crazy. So exactly, if I execute that, hidden is now a string. That is really, really, really bad. And this kind of tricks of managing, increasing the visibility of a variable, of a member, is used by languages, by frameworks, by whatever. I mean, Groovy, who here uses Groovy? Few hands. Hibernate? Well, many more hands. Spring? Well, not really everyone. I mean, basically, you can do a lot. But you can really do a lot. Like, you can make network calls. You can compile code on the fly and execute it on the fly. Even in Java, you don't need Groovy. You can have a Java file, and now with the newest API, you can like read it, compile it, execute it. So what are the safeguards against like evil codes? Static analyzers? Who here uses Sonar, PMD, check style? A few hands. You can have this kind of checks that can, well, more or less prevent you, but you have to know everything that you want to prevent beforehand and how it translates into the API. You can have bytecode analyzers. Same thing. You have to understand the pattern and then prevent it. You can do code reviews. You can do code reviews. And of course, in that case, your colleague might gently point to you that what you are doing is evil, unless he doesn't understand that it's really evil and he used it before, and in that case, it's back to square one. In general, there is always someone in the audience telling me, hey, but we have security teams. Well, generally, there is one. And I tend to categorize security team into two groups. The first group is the guys who are only interested in compliance. Checkbox. In general, those guys don't understand anything about the technical parts, and then you can forget them. They're just a block in your path. And the one who do understand, but first, I've never worked with one of them, I'm sorry. And I'm sure they exist, but if they are really good, then they don't have time to go to every project and check the security of every code path. So it's back to square one. Who knows about this process, steganography? A few hands. Steganography is very interesting because you have some media and you can embed another media in it, and it's hidden for many, many people. Imagine that we do something like that. So in all presentation, you should have a pixel of a cat. So this is a tribute to the cat. Basically, what I'll be doing is I will be reading this image. So imagine you want to read this image, you execute some code. And instead of reading the image, of course, I might have read the image, but I execute the code. Because inside this image, I hid a hidden message. You don't see. That's very bad. Thanks for telling me. So, you didn't see the cat. That's the most important part. Very cute. I didn't understand why nobody was telling me, oh, it's super cute cat. Okay, so this is my super cutie cat, and I have some code that does stuff on this image. I won't comment the code, so this is not really necessary. I just execute this code, and basically, it prints stuff. And what it prints is what I previously embedded into the image. I embedded a Java source code file. And just that, to show that I'm not cheating you, I will change the message. What would be the message? Hello, Voxxed Athens. It's what I've written. I have to change it. Doesn't work. Hello? Hello, Kitty. Good idea. Okay, so I have to prepare the image, so I have code to embed that into the image. Takes a bit of time because I have to like compute every bit, and then if I now go to the image reader again, I have Hello Kitty. That is very, very bad. I mean, now imagine the following, that we are all nice people, but imagine among us now there is an evil guy. You don't see again. At that point, I cannot do anything. Help? Okay, when nothing works, have you tried switching it on and off again? Yes, it works. Imagine the following process. I create a really usable library for image reading. And then I put it like a Steganography feature that is very cleverly hidden. I mean, who reads the source code of the library that you use either? And whenever someone tries to read an image, it will look for the source code inside and execute it. So if I'm an evil guy, and I work in a bank, for example, just as an example, I could add that library to my POM, and then when I submit pull request, I can submit images to my colleagues. I mean, code review, they will see nothing. And then I can, every time I want to execute a specific source code, I can put it into the image that I put into the code base. And no one will be the wiser. No one will ever check anything. And I'm sorry, but this is exactly what can happen right now. Do you remember Applets? Who here has white hair beside me? Yeah, you remember Applets. Half the room remembers Applet. The other half is too young. Applets, basically, you were trusting the internet to download binary stuff to execute on your machine. Nobody would be so stupid as to allow that. So when you executed Applets, basically, your code, well, not your code, the internet code was meant to run into a sandbox. Remember that? And so basically, the JVM has two modes. The gold mode, like free lunch, and the sandbox mode. And everybody, and by everybody, I really mean everybody, is using the gold mode in production, even in very, very sensitive environments. And with that, you can do very, very dangerous stuff. And what most people don't know, and if they know, they don't use it, it's very easy to move from the gold mode to the sandbox mode. You just need to activate the security manager. And activating the security manager is just a command line flag. Or you can use the API, but I wouldn't advise it. So now I will try. Yes. So I will redo my hoops, but then I run it with the flag activating the sandbox mode. And now I cannot execute the black magic. I cannot access the private field. It's not possible. And so where do you configure that stuff? Well, the first thing that you have to remember is that it depends on the version of the JDK that you are using. So it changed from Java 8 to Java 9, it changed. I think it's the same in Java 10, and probably it will stay there. But in Java 8, it's in the libsecurity folder. So there is a Java security file that points to a Java policy file. And this is the default. And beside the default, what you can do is you can set your own policy file. So either you use the double equal sign, which means that you don't use the default at all and you use this file, or you use the simple equal sign, meaning that you have additional permission. So it's completely possible to have one JVM, and for every app that uses this JVM to have its own policy file. And of course, in security, there is the principle of least privilege, which means that you are given only the rights that are strictly necessary to do your task. And in that case, you are not allowed, for example, to compile Java code. Why would you? And the default Java 9 permission is super, super restrictive. Basically, you can listen on ports and read some, but not all system properties. So if you run with the default manager, which I did just before, I cannot set accessible. The good thing about this stuff is that it is written in the Java API itself, in the Java code itself. So if I go on accessible objects and I check the set accessible method, which I used just before to make my private member accessible, you see that it calls to check if there is a security manager, and if there is one, if I have the permission. So while I do believe everything is possible, it's still very hard to bypass anyway. Sorry. You didn't tell me I should have gotten back to my IDE and this is the JDK source code. So this is really deeply engraved. And again, while everything is possible, it will be hard to bypass. What would be a talk without those nice roadblocks? No, it's done. No, it's not done. Okay, so you have a lot of permissions. The old permission is specific because it gives you everything. So I will get back to it later because it seems to be a bit strange. But in fact, I've realized it's super useful. You can read or write properties. So you can only read some properties or only write some properties. File, blah, blah, blah. Just for reference, I've written the ones that are the most important. Of course, if you are using, the local GUI, then you have permissions related to, hey, can I copy the clipboard content for those passwords that perhaps you just put in it. How do you write a permission file? It is very, very simple. And this is a simplified version because then you can sign your code, you can do a lot of stuff. So for this talk, I will just check only how you can create a very, very simple permission file. So basically, you tell grant code base to the jar that you will execute, and then you give permission in the form permission keyword, the name of the permission, and additional parameters that might be required. So I want to create a simple permission file for, let's say, the Spring Pet Clinic, because I love Spring. Who knows the Spring Pet Clinic? A few hands. So I will just show very, very quickly how it works. So I have this application. In the end, it's just executable jar, and now I can show you, again, cats, very good, dogs even. So you can go on the home, you can find owners. If you find owners, you've got a list. Then you can check the detail of an owner. You can edit the owner. You have the list of veterinarian. You can check to view as XML. And also very important, what happens in case of error, is it really nicely coded or not? Okay, very simple stuff, nothing mind-blowing, simple application. But I want now to apply the principle of least privilege on this application. because now it runs in God mode. So I want to create a permission file and to check every time that, yes, I can do this or I cannot do this. How to do that? I have this, edit configuration. I do what I told you just before. I will launch secure, and I will activate the security manager, and very, very importantly, I won't use the default. I really want to start from scratch to have really a very good view, an extensive view of what permissions I need. So let's try. I will run this stuff. I already have a problem. So it asks me for this Java util permission on the java.protocol ender package. So I can add one more. I say, okay, you want this permission? I will write down this permission. And here, I just need to have an additional parameter, which is red with A. Oh, I have another one. Now it needs write. Okay. Oh, no, I have another one. Do you have a couple of hours? Because basically, this is what will happen. If I do it this way, this is, for example, this is the final, and I think I'm still missing some stuff. 684 lines. And I had to cut corners. And we can discuss it a bit afterwards if there is still time. I had to cut corners. And this is what a real permission file is. And in that case, you can hand it to a security team member or to a fellow developer, and you tell him, okay, this is what my application requires. And the guy can tell you, oh, but why do you need that? And then you can discuss. But you don't need to read the whole source code. That is what you need at runtime. And yeah, there is a lot. So how do you create, if you don't have a couple of hours, even though you should, even if it takes you some time, but anyway, how do you create such a file? You remember I told you about the all permission. All permission gives you every permission. So the all permission, I can write the all permission like that, and I can launch it, and I will launch it, and every time it requires a permission, I will debug it. It will be written in the logs. So what I can do is, now I launch my application, uh-oh, it's not the right one. This is the right one. Couple of, I wouldn't say hours, but it takes some time. So you see that I increased the buffer because the default buffer is not enough. I'm not kidding, that's true. So, of course, a lot of them, of those lines are duplicates, because every time it asks for access, it will debug it. And this is not the end, because now, this was just to launch. What I need to do now, every time I click somewhere, it will require more permissions. So, afterwards, you have to click, or hopefully, to ask a script to do it for you on every button, link, whatever, to get to the exact screen and to get the list of permissions. Afterwards, well, copy, paste, unduplicate lines, format, blah, 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 blah. And then, at the end, you have something that is like that. Like that. But there are a couple of issues. Who can think about the issues that I found? Who knows a bit about Spring Boot first? Okay. So one of the permissions is to access a class. If I find it. So here, I need a read permission to access a class. If you know Spring, if you know Spring Boot, you know that sometimes they create new classes. They create new classes with like a random name. And of course, since the name is random, it changes from run to run. Bad stuff. So what happens in that case is you need to do something like, not this one, this one. Especially the auto-configure package is really bad. You need to say, okay, whatever you create at this place is good. The principle of least privilege, now you put a bit of a, like, knife cut in it. But, okay. Other problems. I told you would have to work today. Random port,
Well, Spring uses reflection a lot.
Yes.
So by whitelisting reflection there, you effectively whitelisting reflection in your line code. It's something that you don't want to do. So you need to do something if you want to be, if you want just your code to be secure, and not Spring code as well.
Sorry, again?
Yes, I suppose that if you want your code, the client code to be secure, not the Spring code that you consider the Spring code that, okay, I can whitelist reflection step by step.
Mm-hmm.
True. I would expect that you need to take some further actions to blacklist, for instance, reflection from your packages, but whitelist from Spring packages.
Actually not. The issue that I wanted to tell about was about random ports. When Spring Boot starts, it will not only be about the port that you access over HTTP, it will try to use some random ports. So in that case, again, you have to use a range that is not super great. No, it was not this one. It was at the end, I think. It's in the M bin, the GMX bin. So I don't remember exactly where it is, but port range, I think it's 45 something, 43 something, 42 something. No, that is the name of my machine. That's also very bad. There is a name of my machine inside because it tries to bind to this stuff. So here it is. I say, okay, from range 50, 300 till something. Unless I find a way to tell Spring, you must use this port, which on the other end makes it mandatory for you to be sure that this port will be free on every environment you deploy. This one also, I had to use a range because it didn't work. This is bound to the local address, which probably you don't want to do. I mean, you have to think about a lot of stuff. And you probably will have like a specific file in the end for each environment. You might have like a template for general stuff and then additional snippets for each environment. This kind of stuff can also be removed because it will check probably for every security provider, and there are 10 security providers. Probably in your environment, you would just use a few ones. This kind of stuff. So, where are we, guys? You know where I'm heading to. Now you have two choices. First choice, you forget about this talk. It never happened. And on Monday, when you get back to work, it will be the same. Nothing will have changed. You will live in an ocean of oblivion where everything is fine. But perhaps your colleague, you will think about it. And will say, I can do that. Perhaps I'm working in a bank and I will get some cents on every transaction to my bank account because, I mean, what they're running in production is really not secure. Perhaps. But you are all good guys, right? I'm as well. Or you can think about it, and I would advise you, of course, to choose what fits you. I've been doing Java development for 15 years. I have never seen it in production. Never. And I don't know how many times I thought, it's not possible. And it was in like insurances, in banks. I mean, in places where you would expect the guy from the security to really think about that stuff. No, it's all about ports and about separate network zones. Okay, but I think that security should be addressed on all layers. And this is one layer that is never, ever addressed. So, the choice is yours, the blue pill or the red one. Interestingly enough, you notice that he has only one blue pill and many red pills. So, you can find the source codes, not the source codes, but the detailed stuff on this talk at this address. You can follow me on Twitter or ask me questions if you are too shy to do it now. And of course, you can read my blog weekly, which I try to publish interesting stuff. Now is the time for some questions.
Thank you for that. So, first question.
One question here, the gentleman. Wow. No, you can catch it in many different ways. You can, reading the file itself, even if there is nothing embedded in it. It's a permission. You cannot read from the file system.
I would normally give that permission. I read the file, I accept this image as part of my code base, so okay, I read the file.
Okay, so first you must, second, you cannot, normally you should not, in your normal application, be able to compile Java code on the fly. Bad stuff. Yeah, wait. 3. Thirdly, executing Java code in a specific process is also probably not so good. So you have 3 steps at least to intercept that. Now, if Spring does it, okay, you have a library. I don't want to target Spring. You have a library, and inside this library you have tons of features. Some of those features you use in your application. The other features you don't use in your application. Wait, just allow the features that you use. I mean, that should be common sense. And of course, Spring uses reflection, so you should make sure that reflection on this and this package is allowed, and reflection on that and that package is not allowed. You have a lot of very fine, coarse-grained permissions that you can configure to apply the principle of least privilege. This is a pita, but it is doable with a middle-sized application. So now there is no reason why you shouldn't do it, unless you want to take the other pin. I don't know if it's blue or red, but whatever. I'm not saying this is perfect, but in a lot of my talks, I'm raising awareness on some subject, and I have objections saying this is not perfect, for sure. So what is the alternative? Continue doing nothing, or at least try to prevent the, let's say, the more coarse-grained threats to your security. I mean, if you work in a bank, I don't understand that this is not applied. I don't understand. You can have whatever security procedure in your bank. If you don't secure the JVM level, I mean, you have no place in the security team. I'm sorry if there are people working in security here. I mean, it's a responsibility. I see a lot of, I mean, if we talk about companies, they have no clue what this means. So it's up to you to raise awareness. And afterwards, someone might understand. And in general, what people will do is, but it doesn't bring anything. Yeah, that's true. It doesn't bring anything until something happens. And then it costs a lot, not only in money, but also in image. I mean, you see a lot of scandals that we see every time. And I imagine every time the developer coming to the boss saying, hey, but you know, we might have a problem. So far, so good. Okay, sure. So far, so good. But if it happens, and it will happen, or perhaps even worse, it already happened and you don't know it, then you will think about this and perhaps you might regret it. Or you already begun, but your boss will regret it. Other questions? Yes? Yes. He has the mic, sorry, priority. He has the mic, but it doesn't work.
Yes. What about when you use CDI that uses proxy objects?
It's the same. So basically, this, I mean, the demo that I made was about Spring, and you have to run your application and go to every screen, click on every button to really understand, because you don't care whether it uses CDI or stuff. At the end, basically, at runtime, it will ask for some permissions. So you can apply what I did there with any CDI. Sorry? Yes, and at some point, read the article, you will notice that I had to cut some corners because, yes, some classes are created at runtime and you don't know their name, they will be anonymous, blah, blah, blah. Okay, shit happens. Yes, unfortunately. Other questions?
Yeah. You said we should follow the less privileged principle, but many times I'm thinking about dynamic content. You may not have the luxury to do that because, you know,
I will answer the same.
Yeah.
You can do as much as possible. At some point, yes, some stuff is not possible. Then you have to leave some, I mean, if you have an application that receives image from the internet and that afterwards display, I mean, you have to really craft, and that is hard, but you have to craft the policy file according to your app. And of course, your app changes over time, so the policy file has to change over time. And that should be a concern not only of the development team, but also of the production team and the security team. This is a joint effort.
And also, I would like to ask you, you said we can take the blue or the red pill. The thing is that sometimes we take the red pill, and when we speak to our supervisor, which may be an ISO guy.
Okay, so my answer, yeah, I know where you are heading. So you come to your boss and he says, like I said, it's not my issue. Okay. Are there any manager in the room? Okay, so I will be very polite. Some managers might not be fully aware. No, what most managers do is they do like, they manage the risk. So they manage the risk and they manage the cost. So you have to make them understand that the risk is probably very small, but the costs, the consequences are very huge. And what I would suggest, ask covering technique 101, you write a mail, you copy everyone, and then if he says, we don't do nothing, I mean, I'm a developer, so I know what you feel. Most of the time, I'm in the same situation as you. And before, I was getting, oh no, we are doing the thing wrong, we will all die and stuff. And afterwards, I worked for a public administration for some years, and really, I felt super bad sometimes. Really bad, because the guy didn't understand nothing. And at the end, I understood, guys, I'm doing my job. I'm a developer. I'm telling you the problem. You have the way to correct the problem. Now it's your decision. Whatever the decision, it's not my problem anymore. My responsibility as a professional developer is to tell you, guys, there is an issue there, and here is a solution. The rest, not my problem. And since that time, my life has been much happier. Other questions? Yes, the mic, please.
Is there a performance over here on the security enablement?
So the performance, there is always a question about performance. What is the performance? Better run fast into the wall than to know where we are, but slower.
We're talking about Java.
This is a good question, actually. The performance is here. You can see it here. Whatever I do anyway, I will run the first line, and I will run the second line. The only performance gap you might have is on the third line. So I think that because of a lot of reasons, this is negligible. If you really want to know, then you make performance tests, and then you can take a clear decision. But it's like monitoring. Monitoring degrades performance for sure. Would you have better a very, very fast system and no clue about it, if it works or not, or a bit slower, but at least you are informed and your customer doesn't call you telling you that your site is down? It's up to you. Blue pill, red pill. You see, that's how I manage the stuff. I tell him, and after...
I'm not the manager.
Always. Okay? Other questions? No questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.